So, we had a bit to talk about. Let's have a talk about Wong. How did the story? How did he come up with the story?
Uh, I realized when I was just watching this with you guys, which was such a just pleasure to see this on this amazing screen. I think this is actually the best sound I've heard so far. So just on a side note, I really appreciate this venue. So thank you. I think I realized watching this at this time. I never realized, but I think the biggest influence is actually the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So I really, for me at least, watching it this time, it felt like an extended Twilight Zone episode. And I think I mentioned this before, not really horror, but sort of just a horrifying situation.
Has certain similarities with Sandman. Was that the connection? Is that a connection here?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's a connection for me. But I guess the inspiration was just kind of taking my darkest fears of being a new dad and sort of having this fear of that I was not being a good dad, that I was doing things wrong, that I was making mistakes, that I was impacting my daughter negatively. So I think it was really just taking those inner sort of fears of mine and projecting it on a much bigger canvas than sort of like the worst case scenario in a way.
One intriguing part about the movie is how you blend social realism with the supernatural and the fantastical elements. Because, as I wrote in the pitch, it's kind of like a Sean Baker film in a way.
Oh, I mean, I'm a huge Sean Baker film. I apologize. I never learned how to say the name correctly, but Dardenne brothers.
Yeah, the Black and that.
Yeah, so social realism is absolutely a huge influence. So I think it's sort of like a particular flavor, taking that social realism, but obviously adding a supernatural element and sort of exploring that, like taking it to its tail end. If this were all real, how would that actually play out in real life? Yeah.
Because you have the fantastical elements is very atmospheric and very well thought of. How do you approach the mix between the social realism of the same of the Ben brothers and Sean Baker with more things that I see is more like Guillermo del Toro, Alex Proyas, those types of filmmakers.
Yeah, I guess I try not to be too conscious about it. In a way, I guess it was sort of like the goal was to really examine this situation, but sort of treat it as real life, and sort of see how that would come out. But I did realize, honestly, during the edit, so much of the film changed during the edit, and I was concerned that the film tonally wasn't in the right place. So I had the pleasure of working with our sound designer, Sung Rock Choi, who's worked on some amazing films. But we really started sort of infusing the sound. It's sort of, I don't know if it was that apparent, but with a sort of Lynchian undertone to the whole film to really sort of make the entire thing feel uneasy. So yeah, I hopefully that came through.
Yeah, I think so at least. And also the cast here is very good. Lawrence Cow as the father, and Kai Shek is pronouncing it.
Yeah.
Sort of okay. I hope.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
There are sometimes directors when they cast a father to play a father, they actually get a actor who's recently become a father or a mother.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so Lawrence actually, he isn't a father. Yeah. So we had a lot of conversations about me really just trying to download my experiences of being a father. And Lawrence is amazing. Kai, she's so young. I think she's a prodigy. She does have an older sister that's an actress, so she does have sort of that background. But they both instinctually knew that for us to make this believable, we have to start acting like father and daughter off camera, and just building that bond. So we were all there just to sort of support them, to spend that quality time together and really to get to know. And they had so many inside jokes, and you know, that I would find like random pieces of paper, you know, in the corner. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And just like they were two peas in a pod. So they you know, just outside the film they had a natural chemistry as father and daughter, or just, you know, as like sort of like a big brother and little sister. But they, you know, also as actors, they knew instinctually that we need to also build this relationship up. Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, they're a dream to work with. Brian Thompson, he gave me the advice too. He was just like, because was my first feature film. He's just like, he's such a character. He was just like, you know, go in there and just, you know, you just say what you want to do, and you take. I don't remember the exact words, but he's basically like, don't take any bullshit. You know, you go in and you show him who's boss. And I was like, you know, that's not really my style. I'm not trying to be here and like, you know, pummel people into submission. But he's like, don't take shit. He's like, you just show them, you know, you're the boss. And if they give you crap, like, just don't even take it. So he's such a character. He was a dream to work with. Michael Paul Chan was such a dream to work with. You know, also as an Asian American filmmaker, you know, I don't know if you guys follow sort of like Asian American cinema, but you know, it's been blossoming in the past few years. There's been a lot of films with Asian American leads, which has been wonderful. But Michael Paul Chan, I mean, he's a consummate veteran. He's been acting now in like 40 years, and he told me he was born in America. He's like me. He doesn't really have like an Asian accent or anything. The first 20 years of his character, every single role, he had to put on an Asian accent. Yeah. And it wasn't until the Joy Luck Club that they're like, no, you can just talk normal. So that was like, wow, what an experience, I think, you know, to just not be able to portray himself as is, but always sort of like put on a, you know, I'm a new immigrant type of persona. Yeah, in all those roles.
Was there any elements of Chinese mythology? Because sometimes it has this very Chinese look, if not directly inspired by Chinese. It seems it at times had this Hong Kong horror film look with the pale ghosts and.
Yeah, I think that was sort of I didn't try to be too conscious of it again, not to be like political or whatever, but you know, Asian American cinema, it's made great strides the past few years, and but you know, there's also like a ghettoization or something when you are a minority in America. They still want you to tell stories that are like about the minority experience. And my parents came to America in the 1950s, so they're very Americanized. I'm very Americanized. So this was like a story that was authentic to my experience. So I didn't try to be too conscious, like, oh, I'm gonna do something that is so particular to the, you know, my Chinese American experience. It's sort of like my American experience. Yeah. But you know, there's still elements like she calls her dad Ba, which is Chinese for dad. So, you know, as for me being a second generation Chinese American, it's like there's still those elements of your culture that are there, but they're not, you know, they're blended in with being in America for like decades.
So not a conscientious choice.
Yeah, I try not to be too self-conscious about it. Yeah.
Let's see here. We might actually take some questions from the audience. Anybody have a question for Benjamin?
Before the movie, you said like I get inspiration about this movie when I get my child. What was the feeling about, or what was the idea of that inspiration? I really wonder about that. That protection feeling, or like being responsible from someone and doing even the bad things for protecting.
Yeah.
I really wonder that.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think I just felt I felt out of control, you know. I didn't feel in control of things as a dad, and part of it too also is so I don't know. I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know in Norway I don't know how COVID was. In America, we self-isolated.
We have that in Norway also.
Okay. Yeah. So that was a big experience. And so sort of just magnifying that, like, there were so many stories of people that were, you know, there were times that we had to isolate. I had to isolate from my children. And so that was a terrible time of just not being able to like hug them, having to keep that distance. But yeah, for me personally, I just felt, you know, not to repeat myself, I felt very lost when I had my daughter, just to be totally honest. And I just didn't know what I was doing, and I was filled with so much doubt. And this was sort of my way of examining that. And I'm glad to say I have a second kid now, and I feel a lot more confident this time around.
It's easier.
Yeah. So, because my daughter's still alive, she didn't break every bone in her body. So I'm like, okay, maybe things will be okay. So.
Did your feelings about fatherhood in any way change while making this movie?
I don't know. To be honest, I think not really in a way. The movie just became its own thing that was sort of outside of my life. Once, you start involving producers and actors, and it takes on its own life and it becomes its own thing. So it didn't, to answer your question, it didn't necessarily affect my feelings about fatherhood, because it sort of just became now its own thing. And like, how do we tell this story the best way possible?
Well, how has the response for the movie been outside of this festival?
It's been really good. I think I think it is a sort of like unique flavor, but I think people that are open to that unique flavor really seem to love the film. We are still looking for distribution, so there's that. But hopefully we'll find the right distributor soon. So yeah, the response. Some people have really connected with the film, so it's been really great.
What's the future plans here? Will you still mix the realism with the fantastical in your future projects?
To be honest, this project took a lot for me, I think, just because it is a dark story, and to live with that darkness for years. This is like year 4 or 5 now. I haven't been in it recently, but I definitely will try to add more levity to future projects, just to have that there as sort of like a lifeboat. I'm drawn to like dark situations and whatnot, but I think for my own sake, I'll probably just try to infuse a lot more levity in future projects.
But you still will keep this balance between realism and the fantastical?
Yeah, I think, well, to be honest, I have so many stories I want to tell, and definitely some of them continue sort of that feeling, and some of them are sort of different in terms of their energy. But yeah, I think ultimately I would say I would always want really grounded performances and grounded, like, even though the reality might be absurd, I'm really drawn, I think, to like true to life or true to nature performances. So again, like, you mentioned Sean Baker, all those, I think that's really the influence for me.
Yeah, I'm calling, but this film is kind of like Sean Baker meets Guillermo del Toro. Anyway.
Amazing. I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah, please do. I'm good at elevator pitches.
Thank you.
Yep. Please, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for screening your film to us, and give a big hand for Benjamin.